Silver didn't just decline, it collapsed. In less than 48 hours, a historic breakout above $100 turned into a brutal slide toward $50, marking the sharpest two-day liquidation since 1980. Billions in paper wealth evaporated. Portfolios that appeared strong on Monday were under pressure by Wednesday. But this was not simply panic selling. Beneath the headlines, beneath the price charts, a silent mechanism was already moving. Leverage had built quietly. Derivatives exposure had expanded far beyond physical supply. Positions were layered on top of positions, all dependent on continued upward momentum. The real question is not why silver fell. The real question is who reduced risk before the reversal, and who provided liquidity after it began. Because what happened in those 48 hours may not be an isolated event. It may be a structural warning about how modern commodity markets now function. And once that structure is understood, the volatility looks less surprising and far more predictable. Within days of reaching $100, silver's momentum began to slow. Trading volumes surged as volatility increased. Institutional desks adjusted exposure while public enthusiasm remained elevated. Futures contracts, heavily leveraged, magnified even small price movements. When the first meaningful decline occurred, margin requirements rose. Traders using leverage were required to post additional collateral. Some could not. Positions were closed automatically. Forced selling accelerated the drop. Each decline triggered additional liquidations. The cycle fed on itself. In modern futures markets, leverage can reach levels that multiply exposure far beyond available capital. When that leverage unwinds, price falls faster than it rises. By the end of the second trading day, silver had fallen nearly 50%. Industrial demand had not collapsed overnight. Mine supply had not doubled. What changed was positioning. The notional value of derivatives tied to silver far exceeded the value of physical metal available for delivery. When sentiment shifted, liquidity, not fundamentals, determined price. Commercial hedgers had already increased short exposure near the peak. Retail participation, by contrast, expanded aggressively into strength. ETF inflows surged just before the reversal. The divergence was clear. Institutions were reducing risk while the public was increasing it. The collapse was mechanical rather than mysterious. Silver's 48-hour fall demonstrated how fragile markets become when leverage overtakes underlying demand. For disciplined capital allocators, the lesson is straightforward. Understand structure before trusting momentum. Because in derivative-driven markets, price extremes rarely signal stability, they signal imbalance. Before silver ever touched $100, the conditions for instability were already in place. The rally looked powerful on the surface. Central banks had begun signaling possible rate cuts. Real yields were drifting lower. Investors interpreted this as supportive for precious metals. Historically, silver performs well when real interest rates fall. The macro narrative seemed logical. But price was not being driven primarily by physical demand. Behind the scenes, the derivatives market was expanding at a pace far greater than the physical silver market itself. For every ounce of real metal, multiple layers of futures, options, and synthetic contracts were stacked on top. The notional exposure in derivatives was many times larger than the underlying physical supply. This imbalance mattered. In early February, open interest in silver call options surged sharply. Market makers who sold those options were required to hedge their risk. To hedge, they bought silver futures. Their buying pushed prices higher. As prices rose, more traders purchased call options, expecting further gains. This created a feedback loop. Higher price led to more option buying. More option buying forced more futures buying. More futures buying lifted the price again. This reflexive structure gave the illusion of strong organic demand. In reality, it was a chain reaction driven by hedging mechanics. When silver crossed $90, leverage was elevated across the system. Futures contracts allowed traders to control large positions with relatively small capital. Small price movements created amplified gains that attracted more speculative capital. But leverage has no loyalty to direction. When price momentum slowed near $100, the same structure that pushed it up began to reverse. Call option activity cooled, hedging flows reduced. Some institutional traders began reducing exposure. Liquidity became thinner at higher price levels. Once the first meaningful decline occurred, the feedback loop flipped. Futures positions that had been profitable quickly moved toward loss. Margin requirements increased. Traders who had entered late faced pressure. Some closed positions voluntarily, others were forced out. Because derivative markets dominate daily price discovery, the unwinding of leveraged positions overwhelmed physical buying interest. Even long-term holders could not stabilize the decline in the short term. The spike to $100 was not purely a story of rising demand. It was a story of financial engineering interacting with macro expectations. When leverage becomes the primary driver of price, stability becomes secondary. And in silver's case, the structure itself ensured that once momentum faded, gravity would take control. While headlines focused on volatility, a quieter process was unfolding beneath the charts. This was not merely a price collapse, it was a transfer of liquidity. In the days leading up to the peak, positioning data began to shift. Commercial hedgers, producers, refiners, and large dealers were increasing short exposure. These participants do not trade on excitement. They respond to imbalance. When they see price far above production cost and speculative positioning stretched, they act defensively. By contrast, retail participation surged into strength. ETF inflows accelerated sharply near the $95–$100 range. Many small investors interpreted the breakout as confirmation of a new long-term trend. Social channels amplified the narrative of scarcity and structural deficits. The higher the price climbed, the stronger the conviction became. But institutions were reducing risk into that strength. Commitment of traders' reports showed a clear divergence. Commercial participants were adding to short positions, while non-commercial traders expanded long exposure. This divergence has historically signaled exhaustion rather than continuation. The public saw momentum. Institutions saw asymmetry. When silver began to decline, institutions were positioned to benefit, or at least remain protected. Retail traders, heavily long and often leveraged through futures or options, faced immediate downside pressure. As the price broke below key levels, margin calls began to accelerate. Forced liquidations do not wait for recovery. They execute automatically. Each wave of selling increased downward momentum. Liquidity became one-sided. Those who had entered late were not simply losing value, they were providing exit liquidity for those who had already repositioned. This is the structural pattern repeated across commodity markets. Price spikes attract attention. Attention attracts late capital. Early participants distribute risk into strength. When reversal begins, the late entrants absorb the shock. It is not a conspiracy, it is positioning mathematics. Retail investors often operate with delayed information. They react to price rather than anticipate positioning shifts. Institutions, however, monitor derivatives exposure, hedger activity, and leverage conditions in real time. By the time the broader market recognizes instability, institutional adjustments have already occurred. Silver's 48-hour collapse exposed this asymmetry clearly. The same participants who fueled optimism at $100 were largely absent as buyers at $60. Confidence evaporated as quickly as it formed. For business leaders and capital allocators, the lesson is not about silver alone. It is about understanding who provides liquidity at turning points and who absorbs the consequences. In highly leveraged markets, price extremes rarely mark opportunity for the majority. They often mark opportunity for those who prepared before the crowd arrived. Thinking about investing in silver? You might be surprised by what actually drives its price. It's not just about how much is mined or used in jewelry and electronics. The truth is, silver's price is much more sensitive to financial flows and investor sentiment than physical supply and demand. Think of it less as a safe haven asset like gold and more like a high volatility instrument. It's often called gold on steroids because its price swings can be much more dramatic. So, what should you watch? Keep an eye on real interest rates, industrial demand, especially from Asia, and how big players are positioned in the derivatives market. These are the real clues to silver's next big move. Understanding this financial side is key to navigating the silver market. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more insights. After the volatility settles, serious decision makers begin asking a different question. Not whether silver will return to $100, but what this event reveals about modern markets. The collapse exposed a structural truth. Commodity prices today are shaped more by financial flows than by physical shortages. Industrial demand for silver did not fall by 50% in 48 hours. Mine supply did not suddenly double. What changed was positioning. That distinction matters for capital strategy. Silver is often described as a safe haven or inflation hedge. However, historical data shows it behaves more like a high beta volatility instrument. During several major equity drawdowns over the past decades, silver declined more sharply than stocks. It amplifies cycles rather than stabilizes them. For portfolio construction, this shifts the framework. If silver is treated as a hedge, expectations may be misplaced. If it is treated as a cyclical commodity influenced by leverage and macro liquidity, risk can be managed more realistically. Forward indicators now become critical. First, real interest rates. If central banks cut rates aggressively and real yields move further negative, precious metals may regain support. If inflation moderates while nominal yields remain firm, upward momentum weakens. Second, industrial demand, particularly from Asia. Silver is heavily used in electronics and solar panels. Slowing manufacturing activity or weakening Chinese demand would pressure prices structurally. Third, derivatives positioning. If commercial hedgers begin reducing short exposure or turning net long, that would signal value recognition at lower levels. Until then, residual selling pressure may persist. Equally important is understanding mean reversion. Historically, after extreme volatility events, silver often consolidates within a defined range rather than immediately retesting prior highs. Markets require time to absorb excess leverage before a new trend can form. For disciplined investors, patience becomes an asset. Small allocations to physical metal may serve diversification purposes. However, concentrated speculative exposure following a volatility shock increases risk rather than opportunity. Capital preservation should precede capital expansion. The broader warning extends beyond silver. Derivative-heavy markets are prone to sharp reversals when positioning becomes crowded. Similar structures exist in energy, metals, and even equity index derivatives. In this environment, fundamentals still matter, but flows matter more in the short term. Silver's 48-hour collapse was not simply a historical anomaly. It was a reminder that leverage magnifies both optimism and fear. For those allocating serious capital, the lesson is clear. Respect positioning, monitor liquidity, and never confuse momentum with stability.